My close friend sent flirtatious messages to my husband. Yet, she underestimates the bond between my husband and me. Little does she know, all of her conversations with my husband were orchestrated by me. That evening, as my husband was taking a shower, his phone lay upon the sofa. Suddenly, the screen illuminated. Out of curiosity, I unlocked his phone and took a glance. It was a friend request. The sender of this request was none other than the woman who had recently become quite close to me, my dear friend. Her message was succinct and to the point. Hello, I am Sijui's colleague and close friend, Gao Qingzi. A sense of confusion washed over me. I recalled never having shared my husband's WeChat with her. How did she manage to find his account? Driven by curiosity, I accepted her friend request. Before long, a message arrived. Qingqiu. Hello, I am Sijui's close friend. We met when you picked her up from work last time. Accompanied by an adorable emoji, strangely compelled, I refrained from revealing my identity and continued to respond to her using my husband's WeChat. Nian nian sui sui. I remember you. What's up, Qingqiu? Haha, it's nothing much. I was just playing a game of truth or dare with friends, and I lost. They asked me to add you, so I did. I hope you don't mind. She then sent an accompanying image. It is a selfie, her cheeks flushed and her gaze dreamy, unmistakably a sign of indulgence. Her hair falls gently, adding an alluring touch to her appearance. In the background, one can faintly discern the silhouettes of a few girls, while the table is adorned with bottles of alcohol and dice. I cannot help but furrow my brow, momentarily perplexed as to whether Gao Qingzi is being intentional or merely oblivious. After exchanging a few more words with her, her manner of speaking leaves me feeling somewhat uncomfortable. Her overly familiar tone seems deliberate, yet carries an air of unintentional seduction. At that moment, the bathroom door swings open. My husband emerges, towel wrapped around his waist, rubbing his hair dry, the steam enveloping him in an aura of casual charm. Though I am accustomed to this sight, when he looks over with a smile, I cannot help but marvel at his handsomeness. He approaches me, bending down with an expression of innocence, aware that this is my favored demeanor. Darling, I've finished my shower. Shall we retire for the night? I deliberately turn my head away, evading the warmth of his breath, shaking his phone in my hand. Take a look for yourself. How do you explain this? He takes the phone, and after perusing the chat history, his expression is one of utter bewilderment. Who is this person? I do not even know whether she is round or flat. My dear wife, you must believe me, my wife is the most beautiful in the world. With her by my side, how could I possibly look at another woman? If I upset my wife, I shall simply delete her. As he spoke, he reached for my phone to remove her from his friend list. Noticing my refusal, he did not insist, but instead playfully rubbed his large head against my shoulder. I could not help but let out a laugh at his antics. Seeing me smile, he grew bolder, this mischievous teddy bear, and hugged me with glee. However, today's matter was far from over, and I had no intention of letting it slide so easily. I was uncertain whether Gao Qingzi adding my husband was a deliberate provocation or simply a consequence of her failed game of daring. Yet, the act of choosing to add another woman's husband as a friend hardly seemed like the behavior of a group of normal women. If she harbored no ulterior motives, deleting her would portray me as petty. Conversely, if she did have other intentions, I feared that merely deleting her would not suffice. She might devise other means. It would be wiser to keep her WeChat under my watchful eye and discern her true intentions. Thus, we deliberated for some time, until my husband proposed a solution. After all, he possessed two WeChat accounts, one for work and another for family and friends. Gao Qingzi had added his personal account, so for the time being he would refrain from using that account and simply log in on my phone, if there truly is something of significance that requires his attention. I can simply inform him directly once I become aware of it. Observing my husband's calm demeanor, I nodded in agreement, expressing my satisfaction with this arrangement. Having resolved the matter, he gazed at me with a pitiful expression. If he possessed a tail at this moment, it would undoubtedly be wagging with exuberance, embodying the essence of a devoted husband. Wife, may I now entice you to return to our room with me? He inquired. I lowered my gaze, feigning contemplation, and just as his expression began to reflect urgency, I finally responded with a radiant smile. Very well, the temptation has succeeded. The following day at work, Gao Qingzi greeted me warmly, embodying the guise of a close friend. I reciprocated her greeting with a composed demeanor, and between us, there existed a peculiar harmony. After a while, Just as I was becoming engrossed in my tasks, my phone vibrated once more. Upon checking, I discovered a message from my husband's private WeChat. The sender was none other than Gao Qingzi. Qingqiu. Image, JPG. The content of the image depicted me awkwardly refilling the water cooler in the office, and to my dismay, it captured me in an unflattering light. Qingqiu, you have such great strength. Does he often bully you at home? Accompanied by a cheeky laughing emoji. I cast a glance at Gao Qingzi, who was smiling gently as she gazed at her phone, presumably awaiting a reply. Feeling a surge of irritation, I promptly forwarded the photo to my husband's work account. Before long, a response arrived from him. Tian Xinyan, my wife is truly beautiful. Nian Nian Sui Sui, when did you become blind? Tian Xinyan, even if you are my wife, you should not speak of her in such a manner. Very well, it seems there is little to discuss with this man. I shall respond to Gao Qingzi myself. Nian Nian Sui Sui, it's merely a change of water. It's nothing significant. Qingqiu, I envy you Sui Sui, your husband treats you so well. Qingqiu, unlike me. I can't even manage to move that bottle of water. Clearly, I need to enhance my exercise regimen. Alas, a chill ran through me. I could almost sense her coyness seeping through the screen. How dare this little green tea act so charming before my husband? The thought ignited a flicker of anger within me, and I contemplated confronting her directly. However, reconsidering, I realized that such a trivial exchange of messages might not be believed by others, and she could easily twist the narrative, claiming I was overthinking. It would be wiser to engage in a facade of cordiality for now. If she chooses to withdraw gracefully, I would prefer not to complicate matters for her. Yet, should she insist on her own humiliation, I shall ensure she comprehends that coveting another as husband is a most ungracious trait. I feigned indifference in my responses, but to my surprise, she appeared utterly oblivious to my insincerity. Once again, she messaged to inquire if my husband would like to join for dinner. Naturally, as it was their first dining experience together, I felt it necessary to accompany them. Coincidentally, my husband had mentioned last night that he would be picking me up after work for an evening out. After a moment's hesitation, I ultimately acquiesced to her dinner invitation. I informed my husband of the change, transforming our intimate dinner for two into a gathering of three. His reaction was one of considerable displeasure. To persuade him, I promised to make it up to him with a dedicated date in the near future, vowing to keep that commitment. After much sweet talking, I finally earned back his smile. As I finished work, Gao Qingzi linked her arm with mine, predictably proposing we dine together. Upon reaching the entrance of the company, my husband, Sherzian, was already waiting. From a distance, I observed him, one hand tucked in his pocket, leaning against the door of that beloved car of the unfaithful, a Mercedes-Benz G-Class. Standing at 6 feet tall, with a straight nose and slightly furrowed brows, he exuded an aura of authority even in silence. It was no surprise that many sought his attention, drawn by his commanding presence. Before I could utter a word, Gao Qingzi excitedly called out, "Zian, over here." I couldn't help but frown at her familiarity in addressing my husband. At the sound of her voice, Sherzian turned to look, and in that fleeting moment our eyes met. The coldness on his face melted away into a warm smile as he swiftly approached me. Gao Qingzi wished to engage in a few pleasantries. "Zian, when did you arrive? How long have you been waiting?" "Today." However, before she could finish her sentence, Sherzian interrupted her. Without sparing her a glance, he took the bag from my hands and gently pressed my shoulders. "Darling, you must be exhausted from work. I've told you before, you shouldn't take this job. I can support you. Alternatively, you could join my company and choose any position you desire." Catching a glimpse of Gao Qingzi's pale complexion out of the corner of my eye, I let out a soft sigh, but had no intention of coming to her aid. I am no saint. Instead, I continued the conversation initiated by Sherzian, playfully chiding him. Our company does not align with my expertise, and I still wish to pursue what I love. As we conversed, we arrived at the car, and he courteously opened the passenger door for me. Just as I was about to enter, Gao Qingzi suddenly shoved me aside. Fortunately, Sherzian was quick to catch me, preventing me from falling to the ground. At that moment, she boldly settled into the passenger seat, her voice, sharp as a pin, dripping with sweetness as she addressed us. I have a tendency to get carsick, and you sway are always so vigorous. Let me sit in the front, will you? With that, she cast her doe-like eyes at Shi Zhenyang. This left me both amused and irritated, so I chose to remain silent, fixating my gaze on Shi Zhenyang to gauge his reaction. Indeed, he rolled his eyes in exasperation. I am having dinner with my wife, and you insist on inserting yourself into this. We haven't said anything to you, and now you dare to push my wife aside? Is this your card that makes you so audacious? Despite Shi Zhenyang's dog-like demeanor around me, he maintained an air of aloofness toward others. Perhaps this coldness served as his protective guise. Anyone daring to breach that exterior would be met with his unrelenting sharp tongue. Gao Qingzi appeared on the verge of tears, seemingly unprepared for the mercilessness of the man who seemed so accommodating over WeChat. She stammered out a flustered defense. No, I did not intend to. I merely feel a bit lightheaded. The frown on Zhe Nian's brow deepened once more. If you're feeling dizzy, just return home. Should you vomit in my car, no amount of compensation would restore it. As the situation threatened to escalate, I hastily intervened, casting a discreet glare in his direction. All right. It's not a significant matter. Qingzi, Zhe Nian is not in the best of spirits, so please do not take it to heart. Why don't you continue to sit in the passenger seat while I take the wheel? No. Before Gao Qingzi could utter a word, the usually accommodating Zhe Nian firmly expressed his dissent. I raised an eyebrow as I heard his voice muffled with resolve. I am still here. There is no reason for my wife to drive. As he spoke, his gaze sharpened as it fell upon Gao Qingzi, causing her to shudder in fear. If you are genuinely unwell, I shall summon a car to take you home at once. However, if you are fine, please take a seat in the back and apologize to Sui. Reluctant, Gao Qingzi hesitated, yet upon witnessing his demeanor, she understood that further defiance might result in him forcibly escorting her out. Thus, she obediently exited the vehicle, making her way to the back seat. Her tone still soft and delicate. I'm sorry, I thought it was a free seating arrangement. I don't mind sitting at the back. Please don't be upset because of me. Truly, she is a magnificent white lotus. I exchanged a glance with Shi Zhenyang, and in unspoken agreement, neither of us chose to respond to her. I felt a sense of helplessness, while Shi Zhenyang's expression darkened noticeably. Wasn't it true? The intimate space he anticipated had vanished. And even though I had signed an unequal treaty, he remained displeased. However, I had my own thoughts now. Simply driving away someone as thick-skinned as Gao Qingzi would be too trivial. The game had only just begun, had it not? Dinner was reserved at the Qinglei Cuisine restaurant, a members-only establishment located on the 18th floor, where a dedicated violinist played melodiously. The expansive floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the scenery outside. Initially, we had a cozy table by the window, but now an additional seat had been added, placing Gao Qingzi directly facing the window. At this point, I began to feel a twinge of regret. Shi Zhenyang must have desired a private date with me, yet out of spite and for the sake of amusement, I had consented to this green tea's inclusion, thus disrupting our originally romantic atmosphere. Yet, since we were already here, discussing it further seemed futile. I decided to showcase our affection instead. Come on, Anyan, open your mouth. Shi Zhenyang obligingly opened his mouth to receive the dish I offered, gazing at me with a gentle expression. Dear wife, do not merely focus on me. You should indulge a bit more yourself. See if there is anything else you fancy, and we shall order more. I contentedly pinched his cheek, going with the flow, preparing to add some desserts. However, the affected voice of Gao Qingzi interrupted our tender moment once again. Sui, you ought to eat a bit more. To have an appetite is a blessing, and it will strengthen your body. I would love to eat as well, but alas, I have a naturally small appetite, which makes me particularly prone to weakness. As she spoke, she playfully winked at Shi Zhenyang. Shi Zhenyang frowned in displeasure, and noticing his rising irritation, I quickly squeezed his hand, attempting to quell his temper. In such a public setting, I had no desire to engage in a quarrel, as a confrontation with Gao Qingzi would surely ruin our delightful mood. Little did I know. My restraint only emboldened her further. She donned the guise of a concerned older sister and began to advise me. However, Sui, please do not take offense at my bluntness. The prices here are exorbitant. With our modest salaries, how can we afford such extravagance? One visit with Ziyuan is sufficient. Ordering so much only adds to his burden. Did she truly believe that the Cartier and Hermès items I wear mere replicas? Or does she think I rely entirely on Ziyuan? Was she unaware of my affluent background? I felt an overwhelming sense of incredulity, my expression becoming rather complicated. Suddenly, Ziyuan burst into laughter. Gao Qingzi believed this was a validation of her expression growing increasingly smug as she prepared to continue lecturing me. However, Ziyuan leisurely interrupted her. Miss Gao, are you perhaps overstepping your bounds? She was taken aback, momentarily stunned into silence. Yet, Ziyuan did not spare her a glance. Instead, he gently wiped the corner of my mouth with a tissue before continuing to smile. Miss Gao, are you truly unaware that I am a beneficiary of others' generosity? My family's decision to work stems solely from passion, unlike those who, upon losing their jobs, find themselves in dire straits. Gao Qingzi was about to interject when Ziyuan gently shook his head, signaling her to remain silent. Despite the smile adorning his face, an air of superiority enveloped him. I perceived a flicker of trepidation on Gao Qingzi's visage. He continued, Miss Gao, I presume you have never graced such an establishment in your lifetime? My family as Sui possesses a kind heart and brought you here for your comfort. You need only play the role of a mere backdrop. Yet, you persistently buzz about like an irritating fly. This was a blatant insult delivered in plain view, yet Gao Qingzi bore it with restraint. Her face pale. She forced a smile and replied, You misunderstand. I was merely sharing some sisterly banter with Sui. If she takes offense, there is no need for you to speak thus about me. As she spoke, she grasped my hand, her eyes brimming with tears, her demeanor exuding fragility. It evoked a sense of compassion, making one reluctant to utter another word. However, I felt no such reluctance. It was Ziyuan who had confronted her. Yet she chose to direct her ire towards me, believing I had incited him to speak in such a manner. Truly, there was no hope for her. I shook my head and gently withdrew my hand. What you say holds no significance for me. Focus on your meal. Do try this dish. It's a local specialty and quite delectable. Observing our indifferent demeanor, she parted her lips, but ultimately swallowed her words. The meal was rather soothing, for Gao Qingzi had been rendered speechless. Aside from occasionally casting flirtatious glances at Ziyuan and her contrived, charming remarks that bordered on annoying, everything else was tolerable. We were unfazed by her antics. She spoke her piece while we savored our food, occasionally engaging in discussions that only we understood, leaving her unable to interject. Upon returning home, Ziyuan transformed back into that insufferable man, merrily scurrying off to the shower, all the while mumbling not to let me forget my promise regarding his new research method. I couldn't help but roll my eyes and nudged him into the bathroom. Checking my phone, I noticed that Gao Qingzi was still persistent, bombarding me with messages. Ziyuan, please don't be upset. Did Sui say something to you? It's all my fault. I've been a bit too carefree in my interactions with Sui. Perhaps I've done something wrong that upset her. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. By the way, do you like Kobe? I have a pair of limited edition Kobe signature sneakers that I went through great lengths to obtain. I'd like to gift them to you as an apology. I could no longer bear to read her subsequent messages, my mind overwhelmed with thoughts of signature sneakers. It seems that she possesses not only thick skin, but also a profound understanding of her subjects. She is even aware that Ziyuan has an ardent passion for basketball, idolizing the late Kobe Bryant. The moment those sneakers emerge, any basketball enthusiast would find it nearly impossible to resist their allure. When the time comes, one inevitably softens in the face of such temptation. I must concede her a modicum of goodwill. My fingers danced across the screen, yet I remained at a loss for words. While I was lost in thought, Sherzian stepped outside. Noticing my grip on the phone and the discontent etched on my face, he inquired, "Is it that little green tea again? Don't let her trouble you. I've already dispatched someone to investigate her. With her character, I'm certain she has a dark history. Just wait and see how I deal with her." I tossed the phone to him, and as he perused its contents, I wrapped my arms around his neck, my voice slightly muffled. "I feel as though I haven't tea done as well as she has. I know my husband loves basketball and Kobe. Why didn't I think to gift him a pair of signed sneakers? He found this amusing and embraced me in return. My wife is the greatest gift in the world. You worry so much for me. All my clothes and shoes are chosen by you. I possess so much. Why should I feel discontent over something you didn't consider?" He punctuated his words with a gentle peck on my cheek. "Moreover, I am not some helpless fool. If I desire something, can I not procure it myself? In our marriage, we can speak freely without the need for convoluted subtleties." His words moved me deeply, and tears began to shimmer in my eyes. However, this person has a knack for ruining the mood. He playfully patted me on the shoulder, adopting a cheeky demeanor. "All right, go take a shower. Don't forget what you promised me today. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind washing with you again." I felt my cheeks flush crimson. With a swift glare, I pushed him away and hurried into the bathroom. After the unpleasantness of yesterday, I assumed Gao Qingzi would keep her distance at work. To my dismay, she approached me as if nothing had happened, greeting me warmly. I felt at a loss for words and could only respond to her coolly. Suddenly, she reddened at the eyes and, with a quivering voice, asked, Sui, why have you suddenly grown so cold towards me? I haven't wronged you in any way. So why do you insist on making me uncomfortable?" I felt a surge of irritation and looked up at her. "How have I made you uncomfortable?" Yet she continued to sob, as if bearing an immense grievance, drawing curious glances from our colleagues and prompting some to intervene. "What's going on? You two have such a good relationship. Can't you sort this out? Why is Qingzi in tears?" Gao Qingzi rubbed her eyes, expressing gratitude, and then cast a fleeting glance in my direction, like a startled rabbit, quickly averting her gaze. With a voice thick with tears, she addressed the newcomer. "It's nothing. Can't go. Although there's some misunderstanding between Sui and me, I will definitely clarify it with her." Sukafeng, who has always been Gao Qingzi's devoted admirer, looked at me with a hint of displeasure upon hearing her words. "Lin Kesui, with her graceful demeanor and kind heart, you mustn't keep bullying her." I was so incensed that I nearly choked on my own indignation. "Am I bullying her? What do you know to come here and spout such nonsense?" Su Sanfeng's expression was one of righteous indignation. "I don't understand, so why don't you enlighten me? All you do is provoke her to tears and hurl baseless accusations." In my fury, I contemplated retrieving my phone to show the sycophant the chat history, but then it struck me that the records probably lacked any definitive evidence. Seeing Gao Qingzi continuing to weep and stoke animosity on my behalf, I resolved to turn away, choosing to ignore this theatrical duo. If I couldn't confront them, surely I could evade them. However, this little green tea, mark my words, you shall not escape my reckoning. Once they had vacated the scene, I took a deep breath and opened Wei Xin to message Gao Qingzi. "Year after year, I was a bit short-tempered yesterday. I apologize." The response was instantaneous. "Qing Cho, it's all right. You were feeling down." "Qing Cho, I thought perhaps I had done something wrong, and I intended to seek clarification from Sui today. But she seems to harbor a profound misunderstanding of me and even scolded me. What should I do? Qing Cho, by the way, about the sneakers I mentioned yesterday. Do you want them? I can bring them over shortly. Year after year, no need for the sneakers. Such an expensive gift is too much for me to accept." "Thank you, Qing Cho. Oh, come on. What kind of relationship do we have? What is the harm in giving you a pair of sneakers? Year after year, what kind of relationship do we have?" A shy emoji appeared on the screen. "Qing Cho, Sui and I are close friends. And you are Sui's husband, so what kind of relationship could we possibly have?" I cautiously guided her step by step, and she too exhibited a certain caution. Her words vague and lacking in clarity. However, once I eased my stance, she became considerably more cheerful, chattering like a little bird and sending a flurry of messages. Many of the topics revolved around the interests of Shurzian, indicating that she had indeed done her homework. Chicho, haha, I thought I was an anomaly. All the girls around me are into cosmetics, while I often delve into modern European history. I never expected you to share this interest. Chicho, I never imagined we had so much in common. If only I had the chance to meet you earlier. I neither echoed her sentiments nor overtly rejected her, allowing her a glimmer of hope to continue sending those messages. I meticulously captured screenshots of our exchanges. After spending an entire day chatting with her, I felt utterly exhausted. After work, she surprisingly did not seek me out. She merely cast a distant glance in my direction. In her eyes, there was a mix of pride and a hint of pity. Could it be that she genuinely believed her few messages could sway Shurzian away from me? As usual, it was Shurzian who drove me home. Along the way, he jested, "Did you say something to that green tea girl using my account?" When I was waiting for you at the company entrance, she was practically glaring at me. If you hadn't come out promptly, she would have approached me. I found it amusing and recounted the events of the day to him, also inquiring about his findings regarding Gao Qingzi from the previous day. Upon the mention of this topic, his eyes sparkled with excitement. Seizing a moment during the traffic light's pause, he triumphantly produced a file folder. The information on this green tea is utterly sensational. I intended to show it to you at home, but if your curiosity cannot wait, you may peruse it now. I chuckled and began to leaf through the contents. Little did I know that what lay before me would take me aback. Gao Qingzi, during her high school days, was akin to a pristine white lotus. Previously, she had entangled herself with the school bully, only to be confronted and assaulted by the bully's girlfriend, who threatened to beat her up every time they crossed paths. This relentless harassment forced her to flee, resulting in lackluster performance in her college entrance examinations, ultimately relegating her to a vocational school. Logically speaking, given her academic credentials, she would not qualify for a position within our current company. Yet, during her time at the vocational school, she somehow became involved with one of our department managers, even acquiring a property from him. The manager's wife, known for her fiery temperament, once stormed into the school demanding Gao Qingzi's expulsion, causing quite a stir. Upon his arrival, the manager's first action was to take his wife home. Meanwhile, Gao Qingzi broke down in tears, uttering words of wishing him happiness and lamenting her own unworthiness. The manager, true to form, chose to stand by her side, vehemently declaring his intent to divorce his wife. In the aftermath, the school contemplated expelling her. Undeterred, she sold the property received from the manager and donated half of the proceeds to the school. Employing both soft and hard tactics, she asserted her intention to graduate early, with her future aiming squarely at our esteemed company. After all, our organization is recognized as one of the Fortune Global 500 enterprises. The school gained both prestige and substance, and they did not pursue the matter further. In fact, they even helped her suppress the incident. The manager was transferred to another location at the beginning of this year. Yet the two still maintained frequent communication. I was astounded, repeatedly expressing my admiration. Suddenly, a thought struck me, and I hurriedly inquired of Shurzian, "Do you think if I continue chatting with her tonight using your account and then send the chat logs to that manager, she would refrain from causing any further trouble?" Shurzian affectionately ruffled my hair. "My dear, you are truly kind-hearted, only intending to send it to the manager." "Me? Kind-hearted? My dear friend, are you perhaps viewing me through a rather tinted lens? It is indeed necessary to continue chatting with her tonight, however." A glint of determination flickered in his eyes. "My dear, can you imagine how the manager's wife would react if she discovered that Gao Qingzi not only maintained her relationship with her husband, but also, under his arrangement, joined the company where he works?" I pondered for a moment, pursing my lips. "Are you suggesting that you want to push Gao Qingzi into a corner?" He chuckled softly, somewhat helplessly. "There's no other choice. She bullied my wife today." I was taken aback by how swiftly Shurzian acted. The next day, as I arrived at work, I noticed a crowd gathered outside the company. I must say, the manager's wife was truly formidable. A large banner had been erected at the entrance, proclaiming, Gao Qingzi, shameless mistress with a vocational school diploma, entering the company through the back door is utterly outrageous. As I approached, I could hear Gao Qingzi's whimpering cries. Her devoted admirer, Su Kenfeng, was embroiled in a heated exchange with a middle-aged woman. I say, madam, if you lack charm and cannot attract a man, why do you blame Qingzi? The middle-aged woman, presumably the manager's wife, was equally defiant. That vixen merely hides behind men. Does she not have a voice of her own? Let me inform you, the possessions you have taken belong to both my husband and me. If you do not return them, I shall make you regret it. As she spoke, a scuffle ensued. Accompanied by a group of supporters, Su Kenfeng found himself outnumbered, unable to withstand their onslaught. Furthermore, many of those present, under the guise of mediating, firmly restrained him. Thus, he could only watch in anguish as Gao Qingzi was assaulted, helpless to intervene. One bystander sighed at him, young man. Why stoop to being a sycophant, especially for such a woman? TSK, TSK. Frustrated, he could only shout ineffectively. Meanwhile, Gao Qingzi was already sobbing, her tear-filled eyes scanning the crowd as she helplessly pleaded, No, it's not like that. Manager Wang and I are merely friends. They are fabricating lies. Her voice choked with emotion, evoking sympathy from some. However, faced with the furious wife of the manager, the crowd offered only token resistance before falling silent. This farce continued until Manager Wang hurriedly arrived, his face pale. He swiftly dispersed the crowd, helped Gao Qingzi to her feet, and then turned his ire upon his wife. I have already stated that I have no relationship with Qingzi. You created a scene back then, and now you return for another? Aren't you embarrassed? His wife scoffed, producing a stack of photographs. At just a glance, Manager Wang's expression shifted dramatically. However, at this stage, his wife had long since abandoned any restraint, scattering the photos before us. Come, take a look. See what you all believe to be the pure goddess has been up to. Old Wang has secretly transferred our assets to this vixen behind my back. I have stood by him through thick and thin, and yet he wishes to abandon me for this temptress. My heart aches. Initially, his wife was merely fiery, but suddenly invoking matters of the heart evoked a wave of sympathy among us. I picked up one of the photographs, astounded by the revelry of Gao Qingzi. One must wonder, does sharing such images not constitute a crime? Just as I momentarily lost focus, the situation took a turn. Manager Wang, who had previously denied everything, now faced irrefutable evidence and ceased his rebuttal, instead adopting a tone of defiance. Isn't it your incessant jealousy and suspicion that drives me mad? My love for Qingzi is genuine. Had it not been for her urging, I would have divorced you long ago. You remain ungrateful and continue to create disturbances. Gao Qingzi, with a quivering voice, added, Li Jia, when you encounter true love, you will understand. I have been making every effort not to intrude upon your lives. Yet why do you persistently cling to me? As I observed the middle-aged woman rendered speechless by indignation, it was finally my turn to interject. I let out a cold laugh. Is that so? You and Manager Wang share a true love, yet yesterday you told my husband that he is your true love? Upon seeing me, Gao Qingzi's expression shifted dramatically, though she still feigned the demeanor of a delicate flower. Sway, even if there is some misunderstanding between us. You cannot slander me like this. I see you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. I scoffed, producing my pre-prepared phone and handing it to Manager Wang. Manager Wang, before you rush to defend your so-called true love, why not take a look at the chat history between her and my husband? It's all right here. Gao Qingzi attempted to intervene, but was cleverly blocked by a middle-aged woman. I smiled and settled into a seat. Manager Wang, if you doubt that the woman on WeChat is Gao Qingzi, you may verify and check if it's indeed her account. I adjusted my position comfortably and continued. By the way, there are also voice messages she sent within the WeChat. You should listen to them. Just in case she claims her account was hacked. We would have evidence, wouldn't we? Ignoring Gao Qingzi's murderous glare, I propped my chin on my hand and gazed out the window, suddenly longing for Shi Zhenyang. In truth, all these plans were devised by him. Last night, Gao Qingzi sent another WeChat message, rife with various tests and admiration. Shi Zhenyang advised me to secure evidence and entice Gao Qingzi to send a few voice messages, effectively blocking her from any defense. The content was truly quite revealing. If it weren't for Shi Zhenyang's unwavering devotion to me, anyone else in his place would likely falter. Zian. It has been a long time since I have enjoyed a conversation this much. You truly are my confidant. Zian, perhaps I should delete you. Sui will surely misunderstand. I am also fearful that if I continue to converse with you, I will lose control of my heart. These words were conveyed through a voice message, soft and imbued with melancholy. Following that, there were more words. Never mind, I am reluctant. Why don't you delete me instead? I truly cannot muster the resolve to do it myself. As Manager Wang perused those chat records, his countenance grew increasingly despondent. After a long silence, he struck Gao Qingzi across the face. Wretched woman, did you not profess your undying love for me? How could you so swiftly turn to other men? By this point, Gao Qingzi was utterly flustered, rendered speechless by the revelation of her actions. The more Manager Wang spoke, the angrier he became. I wondered why you kept insisting that we should part for my sake. It turns out you were merely seeking a better option. Have you no sense of self-awareness regarding your looks? Who else would desire you aside from me? Ultimately, the company's higher-ups intervened. Manager Wang was dismissed for abusing his power, recklessly hiring without regard for company policy. His wife formally filed for divorce, declaring her intent to pursue legal action against Gao Qingzi to reclaim every penny she received from Manager Wang. As for Gao Qingzi, she too faced termination. Once the crowd had dispersed, Gao Qingzi, looking disheveled, cast a venomous glare in my direction. Lin Kesui, I have lost everything. My reputation is utterly ruined. Are you satisfied now? I merely smiled. Are you satisfied? Of course, I am satisfied. Evil begets evil. Should I not feel joy? This statement seemed to provoke her, and she lunged at me in a frenzy. At that moment, a hand reached out from the side and pushed her to the ground. Ainyan, what brings you here? Aren't you supposed to be at work? I looked at the newcomer with a hint of surprise. Shi Zian smiled and took my hand. I was worried about you. After handling some matters at the company, I rushed over and fortunately I arrived just in time. Observing our affectionate interaction, Gao Qingzi appeared to be losing her composure. Lin Kesui, are you framing me? You must have known all along, haven't you? Shi Zian furrowed his brows, displaying mild displeasure. I patted his hand, signaling him to let me speak. After today, it was certain that Gao Qingzi would no longer confront me. I needed to vent my frustrations. I am aware. But what of it? Did I incite your malice? Did I compel you to seduce another's husband? Did I instruct you to straddle two boats? Everything that has transpired today is your own doing. What relevance does it have to me? She was momentarily silenced by my words, then turned to Shi Zian. Her expression tinged with hurt. Zian, look at her. How fierce she is. Why would you fall for such a woman? Shi Zian, however, chuckled, gazing at me with affection. My wife's fierce demeanor is truly endearing. Gao Qingzi was taken aback by his shamelessness, her eyes widening in disbelief. Then, as if struck by a thought, she tousled her disheveled hair, adopting a pitiful appearance, her eyes brimming with tears as she pleaded with Shi Zian. Zian, please don't listen to Lin Kesui's nonsense. Everything has been orchestrated by her. She is aware of our profound connection and the ease with which we converse, which has incited her jealousy and led her to conspire against me. Shi Zhenyuan scoffed, his expression revealing disdain. My affection for Sui is unwavering, and I have never shown you kindness. What makes you think Sui harbors jealousy towards you? She opened her mouth, poised to defend herself, but my impatience surged, prompting me to interject. Do you not perceive the disparity between On Yan's demeanor in his messages and in reality? Allow me to reveal that all your conversations with him were conducted through my guise, utilizing his account. I merely sought to ascertain if I had misjudged you. and it appears that your fragrant deception has indeed met my expectations." Her astonishment forced her to retreat 2 steps. Subsequently, she shook her head erratically. Disbelief etched across her features. Abruptly, she lunged at Shi Zenyuan, only to be repelled by a swift kick from him. Undeterred, she pressed on. "Zenyuan, did you witness that? Lin Kesui has malevolent intentions and has been plotting against me. It is undeniably your WeChat. She has surreptitiously used your account to message me. You have misjudged such a petty woman." Shi Zenyuan's voice turned frigid. "I do not strike women, so do not test my patience. Everything I possess belongs to Sui. What of it if she employs my WeChat? Should I hear another disparaging word about Sui, I shall not hesitate to respond unkindly." I playfully chastised him. Yet my heart brimmed with sweetness. "Gao Qingzi, for the sake of our acquaintance, I advise you to maintain integrity in your actions." I composed my expression and continued. "Making mistakes is not dreadful. What is truly frightening is the failure to recognize one's own missteps and the persistence in repeating them. For that is the path to a life irrevocably ruined." At that moment, she burst into tears. "Lin Kesui, you have been raised in luxury, cherished by your parents like a precious jewel. Then you encountered Shi Nian, who dotes on you and fulfills your every need, allowing you to speak without concern for the consequences. But what about me? What do I possess? My parents divorced when I was young, and I vividly recall the mistress who seduced my father telling my mother that a woman must fight for what she desires. Constantly thinking of giving selflessly will yield no rewards." Her tears now seemed genuine, devoid of any pretense. I sighed, and in the background, I heard Shi Nian's cold voice. Sui lacks nothing because she is deserving of it. Your suffering does not justify your twisted thoughts. Reflect on how Sui treated you before you met me. Do you not recognize her kindness? Are there not those around you who genuinely care for you? Yet, in your heart, you deem them unworthy. Or do you choose to repay kindness with resentment?" His words left Gao Qingzi speechless, her cries silenced. Shi Nian held me close and softly said, "Let us depart. Continuing to converse with such a person is futile." After we had taken a few steps, a heart-wrenching wail erupted behind us. The sobs were anguished, whether from regret or sorrow over her current plight remained unclear. Nevertheless, none of us paused our stride. In this world, every individual must bear the consequences of their actions. Following the tumultuous incident at the company, Gao Qingzi seemed to vanish without a trace, leaving no one aware of her whereabouts. The collapse of her public persona elicited a sense of melancholy among some, for she had always embodied an image of innocence and harmlessness. Numerous admirers harbored secret affections for her within the company, particularly Su Kenfeng, who fell into a prolonged state of despondency, desperately seeking Gao Qingzi's contact information. However, how could someone resolutely determined to depart leave any traces behind? As for me, I have finally received delightful news. Within me grows the fruit of the love shared between Shi Nian and myself. When the test strip revealed 2 lines, he exuberantly lifted me into his arms, spinning me around several times until I laughed out, begging him to set me down due to dizziness. Observing the man I adore prancing around me like an exuberant puppy, eager for closeness yet cautious not to hurt me, retreating slightly yet filled with concern, I felt a mixture of amusement and affection. I clasped his hand and declared, "Darling, I love you." He responded with a kiss, his face radiating happiness. "Wife, I love you too."